Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon, Simply Unbreakable, Navigating Life While Dealing with Chronic Illness. We're excited to have Kristy and Brenda with us this afternoon to talk about what life under COVID has been like. Kristy is a proud mom to 3 kids. She's an entrepreneur, a speaker, as well as a chronic illness patient. Brenda is the proud mom of 2 boys, one of whom, McLean, has severe cerebral palsy, along with a number of other medical conditions. Brenda and Kristy will share what life is like during COVID, where they're turning to for help, as well as we'll hear a special announcement from Kristy. We could just do some housekeeping, just to let you know, there is a chat option on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're having trouble hearing or can't see the screen, please use that space there to let us know. And with that, we'll turn it over to Kristy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'll start with an apology if you hear any banging or fighting or general disarray behind me. I've got my kids and husband home today. We're here today to share a little bit about, as Liz said, what's been going on in my life as a patient and Brenda's life as a caregiver, but can't get to that without a little bit of a backstory. So as you may or may not know, I have a rare genetic disorder, a connective tissue disorder that also has a whole host of comorbidities that accompanies living with that EDS diagnosis. I also have ankylosing spondylitis, which is an autoimmune disease. Navigating that journey as a patient with complex and rare conditions was what ultimately led me to create Chronically Simple. I really found that living with a complex illness became almost like a full-time job. Navigating my healthcare over 3 different hospital jurisdictions and 10 different specialists is a lot to manage. And I also, throughout that journey, really learned that we have to be our own advocates. As a patient, no one knows my body and my health better than I do. And especially a rare disease patient, oftentimes the doctors are learning about my condition from me. So having all of my medical information at hand and readily available and shareable became a very important part of my journey and ultimately led me to be sitting here with you today. Brenda?
Okay, so we'll just wait. There's my slide. So as I was introduced by Liz, my name is Brenda Agnew. And I am, among other things, a mother and an advocate. I wear multiple hats, which I'll talk a little bit about as well. But probably the most consuming role that I do have is being a caregiver to my 12-year-old son, McLean. I do have 2 boys, as we mentioned previously, a 14-year-old, and then McLean is 12. McLean was born prematurely at 29 weeks and 5 days. He is a surviving twin. And about 3 days after he was born, he contracted a fairly common condition known as jaundice. A lot of babies get it, and it's highly treatable. It's actually very treatable, and with proper interventions, the jaundice will clear up. Unfortunately, in McLean's case, he was not treated for his jaundice, and it left him with significant cerebral palsy as well as hearing loss. And so that's where I jumped from a mother to an advocate, unintentionally, I guess, but I've had to be an advocate for him from day one. And as you know, Kristy had referenced, knowing herself the best as a patient, I feel like I know McLean the best as his mother. And so, that advocate role has led me down the path in education and in healthcare, in essential services and things like that to make sure that he gets what he needs And it, at the end of the day, it's really balancing the difference between a parent and a caregiver, because I'm his PT, his OT, his nurse, his caseworker, his scheduler, but at the end of the day, I'm also his parent. And yeah, it's a lot of hats to wear.
So prior to our this pandemic that's happened, and like, I don't know about you, but for me, I think of my life now as pre-COVID and post-COVID. So in my, quote unquote, normal life, I have 3 kids. Keegan is 12, Grayson is 10, and Sadie is 7, going on 17. She's a handful for those that know her, in the best way possible. I would describe my daily job duties with them as, a chauffeur. Both boys play rep hockey. Sadie does gymnastics and dance. There are a lot involved in those 3 schedules. So I'm constantly driving from one arena to a gym to another arena. They also have active social lives. Probably like most parents, my kids' social lives are better than mine at the moment. So a lot of play dates. I do my best. Prior to COVID, I would do my best to review their homework and coordinate meals. I'm also married to my husband, Simon, who is a firefighter with the city of Mississauga. He works 24-hour shifts. So 2 days a week, I'm a single parent for navigating our busy family calendar. I also have a full-time job running Chronically Simple. I'm honored to be a patient advisor for the Burlington, Ontario Health Team's Digital Health and Performance Management group. I am a member of the CORD, which is the Canadian Organizations of Rare Diseases, as a patient. And also, very importantly, I'm the co-chair of my kids' school parent council because I don't have enough to do. When I think about what our normal life was prior to this pause, the word that comes to mind for me is run. I think about, prior to this, oftentimes Simon and I were passing ships. I would get in from work, drop my laptop bag, grab a kid, get in the car, not get home until 7 or 8, do our bedtime routine. I felt like I was running from one task to the next. And that was normal. And probably like most of you, relatively the same as how you guys run your lives. Brenda?
Yeah, so not unlike Kristy, I'm a busy working mother. Again, I mentioned earlier that I have 2 boys. Just the thought of 2 boys, I think automatically brings up thoughts of being busy and being a bit hectic. But my older son, who's 14, he does play multiple rep sports year round. So winter is consumed with hockey, spring and summer consumed with like football and baseball. How that's going to work this year, who knows? I have a husband who's also actively involved in my older son's hockey, and so he coaches that, which takes up a lot of his time. He also runs his own business, and so with that becomes, unpredictable schedules and sort of going with, what his customers require. As I obviously mentioned, and what brings me here is my 12-year-old son, McLean, who has cerebral palsy, who is also extremely on the go. So he is just as active as Chase is. If he's not being dragged to one of Chase's sporting events, he is at Friday night band practice because he's in a rock band. He's playing baseball. He's online with friends playing video games. He's at the movies. He's all over the place. He's an extremely busy kid. Full-time job. So my full-time gig is I'm a client liaison with a law firm, Gluckstein Lawyers. And then in my spare time, I am a Burlington School Board trustee, which these days has been extremely busy as everyone's trying to figure out distance learning and all the pieces that come with that. And no, I don't know if school is going to be canceled for the rest of the year. And also director of caregiving with Chronically Simple. I was remiss earlier in not mentioning what sort of brought me into this situation. Kristy and I have been friends for a number of years. Her son Keegan and my son McLean are extremely close friends. And you know, when we started talking about our life and managing it and what that looked like, heard from a patient's perspective, from a caregiving perspective, I realized that I definitely wanted to be involved with Chronically Simple. I'm hoping to bring a caregiver lens to the planning of things like some of the special features on the app and how to reach out to certain communities. So I'm really proud of that role as well, being involved with Chronically Simple. I talked before about being an advocate, which has led me into being an active member of several committees. So I sit on the Burlington Accessibility Advisory Committee, a number of different engagement groups and research initiatives. So I'm involved with CPNet, the American Academy of Cerebral Palsy and Developmental Medicine, Child Bright. And really what those do for me is they help provide an opportunity to be a voice for my son, as well as other families and children who are living with disabilities. And part of that is I also run an online support group for pediatric caregivers called PAL. And that has been an instrumental piece for me, having a community to go to share everything that's going on in my life. And it has been an essential piece when we talk about what non-normal life is like. Again, always juggling schedules, appointments, practices, travel, like Kristy, trying to figure out who's going to take who, where, and how we're going to make that happen. We get it right 80% of the time, we get it wrong 20% of the time. But you know, that's life, and it's usually made a little more complicated when you have a child with significant needs as well. And usually what's heard in our home, or was heard in our home before all of this happened, was just hurry up. You know, we gotta go. Whether we're rushing to school in the morning, whether I'm rushing to get out to a meeting, whether we're rushing to get to hockey practice, rushing to get to an appointment, it's constantly hurry up. And that's, you know, really sort of summed up what normal life was like for us before all this COVID happened.
So as I mentioned, in my mind, I've got pre and post. And I remember the first weekend, I've got this board in my kitchen, and it's a whiteboard, and Grayson and I fill it out every Sunday. And in it we have what is happening each day for each kid. So it kind of keeps not just Simon and I on track with what we have going on during the week, but the kids can also, you know, quickly check the board. Okay, I've got hockey practice at 5, or flag football at 6, or I'm going to, you know, this friend's house for a play date. That board was always full, always. And it had our menu down at the bottom. That was also important because my kids like to know, you know, what's for dinner. We had to pre-plan everything. That first weekend, I've been isolating since March 12th. And that first weekend, I looked at our board and it was empty, except for the meal plan, because I felt like something had to be on there. So I, for the first week, kept up the meal plan. Now it is fully empty. There is nothing on there. It was kind of surreal to me because I honestly think it's probably the first weekend that we didn't have hockey or a sporting event or a birthday party or a family event in, I honestly, legitimately can't tell you how long. And it felt great, you know, that first few days, like, oh, I was probably like the rest of you, like, I'm going to get so much done. I'm going to clean. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then, you know, after that first week, the reality set in that, you know, that calendar is going to be blank for a while. So the main thing for me, the two biggest changes in my life from a personal perspective, not as a patient, are number one, I'm now homeschooling a grade 7, a grade 4, and a grade 2. Those who know me well know that, you know, I was an English major in university. Grade 7 math is about 5 grades above my intellect level. So it's a challenge, and there are tears, not often, more often mine than my older sons, because I am not a teacher, and that has come out loud and clear over the last few weeks. So that's probably been one of the biggest changes. The kids eat a lot. I'm like a full-time cook, snack maker, cleaner. The house is, I don't understand how we're using more laundry now when we don't actually leave our home, but I'm constantly under my laundry pile. And then there's also the entertainment piece. When you have 3 kids who are used to being very physically active and also very socially active, managing the fact that we are isolating at home because of my immune system and Simon's work, it's, in my opinion, it's not safe for our family to be out and about. So we've been isolating at home for a long time, and our house, it's pretty boring, apparently. So I've been told. We've been in here so long that even the Xbox isn't fun anymore. So I feel, as a person, I'm feeling disconnected from my social life and my support system. But as a person living with a compromised immune system, my husband was sick for the month of March, and as a result, I had to come off of my treatment. So that's been a big impact, and not just because I require my treatments to manage my conditions. I also had to then get into the mental health space to go back on treatment now that Simon is better. And that took a lot more mental energy than I thought it would. I share that basically to say I feel like I'm living in a constant state of feeling vulnerable and a little bit of fear, which is an emotion that I'm not really used to. I'm a risk taker, clearly. I've been an entrepreneur and self-employed for the last 18 years. So, calculated risks, but I really live my life with the mantra that pretty much everything you want is on the other side of fear. This is a fear. This pandemic is a fear that is completely unknown and foreign to me. I can't imagine going into a hospital right now to receive treatments. The majority of my appointments have been canceled. I am lucky and grateful that Ontario has responded very quickly to virtual care. So we have had the ability to have some virtual care appointments, and as a result, my treatment and medications have not lapsed. I'm able to remain on my drugs, but I do, because I'm active in the patient and specifically the rare disease world, I know people that have to go out to clinics or to hospitals for infusions, and it's they're scared. They're scared to leave their homes, and they are afraid to go into a clinic. They are afraid to go into the place that is supposed to make them well. So I think as a community, we're navigating new feelings and trying to do the best that we can with those. Working remotely is also another beast for me. I'm someone who loves going into my office. I describe myself as an introverted extrovert. I certainly do enjoy my alone time, but I thrive in a team, and I really enjoy being engaged with my colleagues. I also like the routine of leaving my home to go to work and then, coming home to be with my family. Having that separation is good for me. So trying now to work remotely, I find 2 things. One, I'm yelling at my kids more to be quiet because I still have this unrealistic expectation of professionalism. And heaven forbid anyone know that there's, a family life going on behind the scenes when I'm trying to have a business conversation. And second of all, I've been working more, crazy amounts more. And some of that is because of necessity with, you know, where my business is taking me. But the other part, after a little bit of, you know, self-awareness, is it is easier for me to throw myself into work than it is to be worried about everything that's going on, you know, outside of my little bubble. So long hours, and more importantly, and probably what has been the top of my mind from the day that I started isolating was an overwhelming sense of worry for the community that Chronically Simple supports. Hearing the government talk about the elderly and the medically vulnerable hits home, not just because I am immunocompromised, but because people that I love, like McLean, people that I have grown and built relationships with throughout my entire Chronically Simple journey, they fall under that bucket. Not only that, there's a lot of people I know that I interact with daily who I call them kind of the invisible illness people, because they walk around, you wouldn't know that they are on a treatment that might weaken their immune system. So when we hear the government talking about protecting the medically vulnerable, automatically I think society goes to, you know, if we can see that you're sick, okay, you're medically vulnerable. But for people like me, I don't look sick. And so if you're not practicing social distancing, it might impact people that you don't even know about. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent. But anyway, all of that was to say that throughout this new life under COVID-19, I think what has been top of mind is just concern about the community that Chronically Simple supports. I didn't want to end this slide though. I've probably spent the last 5 minutes talking about not great things, and those who know me know that I like to live under like inspirational signs and a positivity cloud, if you will. Getting to that place over the last few weeks has been a challenge for me, but one thing that new COVID life has done has, at least for me, I am much more intentional about checking in with my family and checking in with my friends. And I probably spend more time now on FaceTime. Every night at dinner, I FaceTime my sister and I speak to my nieces. That didn't happen in my previous run life. I would be lucky if I checked in with my sister every 3 or 4 days. And even then it was like a 2-minute, hey, how are you doing? So one positive for me that I absolutely want to take with me as we return to what a new normal would be is to be more intentional about checking in and having, true meaningful, even if they are just 5-minute conversations with my family and friends and the people that are most important to me.
If I go with the before and after, so what was it like before? And, it's not really an after yet, we're still in it. But, certainly, living under these circumstances is so different for everybody globally. But I think each person on their own is having a different experience with how they're handling this, how they are receiving this, their emotional well-being. Introverts across the world are high-fiving each other because this is amazing for them. I am definitely an extrovert, so this has been a challenge for me. But just talking a little bit through some of my points here on my slides so I don't get too much off track. Still continuing to work from home. And as I mentioned earlier, working from home is not a new concept for me. I have been well positioned to do this for a number of years. It's my preference. I like being able to work in a home environment. I need that flexibility, to be honest. Having a child like McLean, I need to be able to control my own schedule. So, for me, working from home has not been a stretch. We have an office set up. I had a great space to work. I had all the, everything I needed access to remotely. And I've been doing that consistently since March the 13th under sort of this new regime. What has been different is having 2 children home all day. So that has been, that has been the biggest adjustment. And much like Kristy was saying, there's a whole lot of shh that's going on, and that's not always realistic. The kids need their snacks, they need help with their homework. They need to check in throughout the day. They've got a lot of stuff that's going on as well. So they need to be checking in. So it's just a different environment, having them at home all day, because they need my attention also. So that's been a bit of a juggle, trying to make sure that I'm able to do things like this without interruptions coming through that door. But we're figuring it out. And I think that a lot of people have been extremely amiable and just understand that this is living with COVID right now. I thought about dressing up today, but instead I wore my COVID uniform, which is my sweatshirt. And I'm thankful that I have a healthy collection of hooded sweatshirts for this time. I feel like I've been preparing for this. But, there really hasn't been any slowdown for me as far as my work commitments. Being a trustee, things are still going on. You would think with schools distance learning right now, things would slow down, but they don't. There's budgets that have to be approved. We have to plan for the next school year. We have to hope that we're going to go back to some sort of normal routine when schools reopen. So again, the hardest thing for me has been walking away from things at the end of the day. And for a couple different reasons. I think Kristy's reasons are a little bit, maybe different. I don't find that I'm bearing myself and work so much to keep my mind off other things. Trust me, I have a lot of Netflix I like to binge. But for me, it's just a couple of things. I think, we're all trying to stay super productive. We don't have as many distractions. So I think that it's easier to sort of focus on some things. But I think it's an all hands on deck situation right now. And with that, maybe taking on some responsibilities work-wise that maybe weren't there previously before. And I'd lie if I didn't say that, financially, you worry about that security. Fortunately, for all of the roles that I have right now, they've been consistent and there's been no layoff, and we've been business as usual in that respect. But that's always a fear. And I've got a child with extraordinary needs. And so financially that's a hardship that other families may not have to endure. And I'm seeing in my community, that's a big fear. Parents who are having to stay home with their kids now from school, and they're not getting that break during the day. So they're having to leave work to stay home with their children, and that's a financial strain also. So, on that note, homeschooling, like the rest of the province, is something new for us. I'm thankful more so for my grade 9 student, or my grade 9 son who had math last semester. So I'm not having to work grade 9 math because I don't think I passed grade 2 math. So I'm thankful he has English this term. Makes me feel more productive as a homeschooling parent. But from a special needs perspective, if I go back for a second, so my older son, what are your assignments? What do you need help with? I can check in with him. He's pretty self-sufficient. He can work remotely downstairs. He can work at the kitchen table. McLean is different. McLean, it's more involved with him. He needs a different approach, some more hands-on support. His ability to take in certain things can be limited. He can be easily distracted. And frankly, he does a lot of his learning through his peers and through the school environment. And that isn't available to him right now. So we're thankful for the supports that he is getting, but he is desperately missing his peers at school. It was a reason we chose to put him into the mainstream school system, to be in a typical class, typical peers. So not having those has been really difficult for McLean. That is a big part of his socialization. And he loves school. I don't know a lot of kids who try not to miss school. He is someone who very much enjoys the school experience. So that's been a little bit sad for me, that he hasn't had that going on. The rest of it is really the same as what a lot of people are going through. Full-time meal planner, I think I'm failing miserably on that. Thank God we're stocked up on Kraft dinner and canned soup. Nobody's starving. For first few weeks were a little more exciting. Planned meals, 5 weeks in, not so much. I think my greatest stressor of the day is making sure I get an open slot at the grocery store for my upcoming order. It's like the back of the day where you have to order contra tickets and you wait to refresh the page on the hour. But just making sure that, you know, I'm continuing to provide for my family what they need. We need groceries, we need supplies, you know, a small thing, not a small thing, but, you know, I was so focused on what we needed to have from a food perspective and other things like that. I found myself last week realizing that we didn't have some medical supplies for McLean. And he needs glycerin. And little did I know that apparently glycerin is something that people are using in their own hand sanitizers. So all of a sudden, there's a product that I need for him that he has to have daily as part of a bowel routine, and we can't get access to glycerin. And it should have been top of mind, but it wasn't, because I was more worried about, you know, the other things that were definitely being, you know, sort of more promoted, like things like groceries and other things. So, you know, trying to make sure that we have what we need for him was an eye opener, because without things like that, without batteries for his cochlear implant, you know, without some of those supplies, we can't provide for him what he needs on a daily basis. And, you know, when I've tried to be a little bit of a cheerleader, I have a lot of inspirational sayings around my home. I am not someone who typically needs to sort of have those pieces. I'm more of a realist, if you will, rather than an optimist. But I think it's been important to be a cheerleader where I can. We try to shut down the day when we can and watch a home, you know, movie together at night. My kids have had to see a lot of things canceled. There's a lot of things that are uncertain. We've had to reschedule trips. That's sad. You know, it's sad for me. I can't imagine how that feels for them. My younger son, I haven't had the guts to break to him yet that his special needs camps have been canceled this summer. That's a big deal for him. So trying to find ways to be a cheerleader for them, because they're dealing with things maybe very differently than we are. And, you know, sure, it was fun for the first few weeks to play PlayStation nonstop, and, you know, but even that's becoming tiresome. And so trying to be a cheerleader for them when I'm not having the best days myself sometimes is really difficult. I miss my in-person support. I miss my social system. A lot of the roles that I do with respect to my community work, my full-time job, my board of trustees, I meet with people. I meet with people all the time. I go and I do speaking engagements. I have meetings. I participate in symposiums. I meet people for coffee. A lot of what I do is community engagement, bringing the community together. That's been really difficult, to not be able to do that sort of thing with people in person. And yes, we've been able to do things virtually, but you know, I am definitely a better people person when it comes to those sorts of things. That's been really, really difficult. And it's been, again, really difficult for my son, my younger son. My older son's a bit of an introvert, so I think he's high-fiving the introverted community. My younger son is an extrovert, and you know, he can't just go and entertain himself on PlayStation. He can't just FaceTime his friends. Everything he does has to be planned and has to be executed by someone to help him do that. So that, you know, has been really, really difficult. And then trying to find a way to make sure that we're still keeping up his therapies. Thankfully, we have some therapists that have been doing things online, but that's been, you know, really tough. We've had appointments canceled, things we've been waiting for a long time with specialists. You know, those are disappointing, and I don't know when those are going to happen. And this is, you know, the difference between Kristy and I is I left the negative to the end and not the positive, not intentionally. But I think it's important to talk about, you know, managing the stress and the worries of having a child who is really vulnerable to this virus. And I tried to ignore that when all of this was really ramping up. As we were seeing groundswell with this coming, I'm not gonna lie, I sat in the camp that thought, you know, this is fine, it's no different than the flu, it's gonna be okay, and really tried to be that way. We try not to overly obsess about McLean. And I think because we live such a typical, normal life with him, people almost forget that we have a child with special needs. We almost forget we have a child with special needs because we're just so typical in the way that we handle our life. But the reality is that he is a child that is extremely susceptible to this virus. He has chronic lung disease as a result of being a preemie and being ventilated for so long. He spent the first 7 years of his life in the hospital, more than I can count, with more than I know the number of admissions for pneumonia and upper respiratory conditions. And so, you know, I can't ignore that. And we too have been isolating as best that we can. There's times where we've had to go out to get necessities, but we have shut down our doors otherwise. And we have to be aware of, you know, how this could impact McLean. So 2 things: how this could impact McLean should he get sick. What does that mean for him? There's a lot of fear in our community about the triage protocols that are coming into place, how people are being assessed as to whether or not they will be worthy enough to receive those ICU beds and those ventilators. And having a child with significant cerebral palsy, we don't know what that will look like if there's only so many ICU beds to choose from and only so many ventilators to go around. And so there's a fear if he gets sick, what does that look like? If he just gets sick normally with something, I don't want to take him into a hospital for fear of exposing him, you know, to this virus. And then what happens if we get sick? You know, we don't have parental support right now. My parents can't come in and help. We can't bring in, you know, any additional respite workers to come in and help us. So, if we get sick and something happens to us, what does that mean for McLean? You know, who needs to have 24/7 care for everything that he does, eating, dressing, bathing, everything. And that wasn't something that I had been thinking about before. I really was focused more so on him not getting sick. I wasn't thinking about us getting sick. And there's just no supports out there available for any of our families in this community, should any of us fall ill to this virus. And then, you know, always thinking again about, you know, finances and the supports that are available. And just trying to make sure that we can continue to, you know, I can continue to support my family under these extreme conditions right now. So, you know, I'm not unlike the rest of the world, but I think our situation is a little bit more unique. And I know that one of the first that I did when this happened was I went to my parent support group and initially just put out an email that said, if anybody needs anything, like, let's come together and make sure that we can all support each other. And let's make sure that we get through this. And knowing the needs of my community are very unique. You know, we really tried to rally together to make sure that if somebody required supplies or products or access to, you know, certain items, that we would be able to provide those for each other in some fashion. So thankfully those, you know, those online support are still exist, and I know that I still have a steady stream of supportive family and friends that are just, you know, a FaceTime away. So yeah.
What we wanted to do, and you know, we won't speak to it in depth. We'll offer this webinar, you know, for anyone that wants to go back and listen to us and check out the deck again, because we're so interesting. You'll have access to this, but we wanted to make sure that we included some resources that we thought would be meaningful or beneficial for both the patient and the caregiver communities. I wanted to include, you know, information. So for patients who are, you know, kind of keeping tabs on the virus and how it's affecting your community, World Health Organization, disease control, just, you know, making sure that we're providing links to reputable and accurate news updates or news organizations, I should say. Well, World Health Organization is not a news organization. Sorry, miswords. Resources to reputable organizations that can give you the information that you're looking for. I think a big part for us is not just the physical health, but mental health And there's going to be, I think, as we continue to navigate our new, what this looks like and then what things look like afterwards, it's really important, to Brenda's point, if McLean were to get sick, she wouldn't want to bring him to the hospital. If I were to get sick, not from the virus, but just from things that happen to me daily, I get a kidney stone right now. I'm managing that at home. I'm not going to the hospital. That's new. And that also will not just affect your physical health, but your mental health. So a link there for coping with stress and anxiety, patient safety. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't put a link to Chronically Simple on there, because I believe that we've built a pretty good patient resource tool. The next slide, I think, has Brenda's. Here we go.
Yeah, so similarly, the resources for caregivers are going to be obviously a little bit different from patients, not from the mental health perspective. I think any of those resources can be certainly shared. They're very personal to the individual. But from a caregiver's perspective, I do think that they're a little bit different. We just carry a different burden. We are, again, not just making sure that my family has food and we have money coming in and we have consistency with employment, all those things going on. But as I said earlier, making sure that McLean is set up for his therapies and making sure we're rescheduling appointments, making sure he has the medical supplies he needs, those sorts of things. And I just think that the caregiver perspective is always, it's just different. A lot of us are not getting the respite that we need right now. And being a caregiver on the best of days is super tiring. It's been even more so. People with, I thought when this all started, like, I'm gonna sleep more, I'm gonna watch Netflix more, we're gonna build puzzles. We haven't done that. We're gonna do some things, and that hasn't been the situation because it's tiring. It's tiring to consistently, be taking care of someone all day long and not have that break. So anyways, not to go on that tangent, but that's why I wanted to put together some caregiver resources to make sure that people have access to a few different options. And the nice thing about these resources is there's some that are more specific to people that are caring for an elderly parent. And then there's also some that are great for pediatric caregivers. They're practical resources. Some of these links have links to other resources. So that's a good thing. And, I find that a lot of times people will say to caregivers, go have a bath, go have a glass of wine and get your lap and diffuser going. It's not going to cut it. So these are some more practical resources that I hope people can benefit from. And if they can, great. If they can't, they're there for them anyways.
So this has been an interesting time, personally, also professionally. In the background, my team and I have been working on a massive development project. So for the last 8 months, we have rebuilt the operating system for Chronically Simple to bring our users a faster and smoother experience. We built out some feature enhancements for our medication section and our appointment section. We also took some very loud and clear feedback from our patient and our caregiver communities that we support for the need to have a symptom tracker for managing things like fatigue, pain, nausea, cognitive ability. That feedback came out very early on in our, when I was building this product, and the last 8 months have been spent working on this massive dev project. And I was beyond thrilled and excited when we finally went live. I think we went live March 12th, the day I started self-isolating. So, obviously, from a business perspective, not a time that you're going to announce anything new. It just wasn't appropriate, but it also, the success of successfully delivering this and getting this much needed update to our users was so far overshadowed by what can we do to help, where we're at today, and what our communities are facing today. And I spent a lot of time trying to think about what we have in our tool and how can we be impactful in helping the communities that use it. And through conversations that I had within my network of healthcare professionals, what I was being told was that frontline doctors were asking people, obviously, stay home, don't come to the hospital unless you really need to. And if you think you're getting sick, track your symptoms at home. So what the questions that they're asking when you present at an ER are, where were you and what were you doing at the time of symptom onset? If you have a fever, can you track that every 4 hours? And, kind of keep a symptom tracker, for lack of a better term, of how you're progressing. So if you need to seek medical attention, the doctor will know who you were with, what, from a community perspective, to keep things all together. That triggered for me that Chronically Simple could pivot and include a temperature tracker in our symptom tracker. We had just gone live with this tracker. If we could build out a fever tracker in a very quick period of time, then that would be beneficial for people, whether or not you're living with a chronic disease. Just if you are feeling worried about any potential COVID symptoms, this would be a way for you to take back a little bit of control and keep track of your symptoms. So I went to my team with this big idea and said, can we do this? And if we can, it's got to be done like yesterday. So within 2 weeks, we were able to develop, approve, get through App Store and Google Play, and go live with an additional feature, which is our temperature tracker. The second part, and Brenda's talked a little bit about it, is the financial strain that's happening to people right now. There is a lot of uncertainty in terms of the economic ramifications of this virus. We are seeing companies close down. We're seeing massive layoffs. And, people, I think I'm not alone in, I'm not spending money on things I don't need because there's that uncertainty. So I wanted to remove that barrier and not put any additional stress on our community. So what I'm thrilled to announce today is we are offering Chronically Simple for all new users for free for the next 6 months. I just wanted to make sure that we were not, my goal and my role has always been to support in the best way possible the communities that we want to help and make lives easier for. And it just seemed like a logical piece to me that we eliminate any cost associated so that you can focus on, putting your finances towards areas that it should be, and not have access to a tool that could help you manage your health moving forward. So with that, our website is now live with our free trial. So you've got a 6-month free access to a 6-month free trial, as well as all of our new updates. So we're bilingual. We've got some enhancements with how our users can track and manage their medications. I think if you've been using Chronically Simple for a while, you'll feel a little bit of a difference, hopefully. And if you're new to the tool, whether or not you're living with a chronic illness or a disability or caring for someone in that position, at this time with the uncertainty as to how contagious the virus is, for anyone, Brenda calls them, typical, this is a tool that anyone can use. So at the start or the onset of, not feeling very well, keep track of that so that should you ever need to access medical care, you are providing in a very efficient manner, clear and concise information to the doctor. That's to me, what is most important when I'm looking for treatment is that my healthcare provider has a clear understanding of my background. When Brenda goes for treatment for McLean, it's important that any specialist that is looking at him or treating him understands all of the history that he comes with. And that is so important to all frontline health workers today. Anything that you're going there to seek treatment for, they need to know, when did it start? How has it progressed? What has your fever been? So hopefully our tool will help you manage that in a safe, secure, and easy way. And with that, we managed to, we talked for a while, Brenda. This has been not a short webinar.
We did, which is
We do
good.
have some questions.
We thought we were
Oh.
going to be done much quicker than that.
And sorry, Liz, we've got some questions.
Yep.
We do. Sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah, so I'll just read. Brenda, when you put the call out to your community to help each other out, was there a good response, or were people hesitant to ask for help?
So there was a good response. Like I said, that had been the first message that I had sent out in this group that I managed. There's about 2,100 families that were in there. What was interesting about it is that, so twofold. One was the way it was received initially was just that people were just actually grateful that someone was just putting it out there to say, you know, I don't know if I can help, but if you need help, I'm here. So I think it started automatically. We're always a very supportive community, but it right away just sort of started this discussion about, you know, we're here to help. And so people were really receptive to just even the thought of the offer to help. But then since then, it's been very consistent in people asking and receiving help. So, you know, this would be more specific to my community, but, you know, moms who need to order supplies, or people reminding each other of where to get something, or things are running out. That's where I got the hints about the glycerin running out, alternative ways to get access to things, funding resources. And then we sometimes get things where people say, I have an extra case of formula. I'm happy to do a contact list drop off. So the response was well received, and it has been consistent. I'd say every day there's somebody reaching out on our group to say, can anybody help with this? And there's always someone that's able to respond back to help. And then, you know, one of the things that wasn't as tangible because it wasn't a product, where people were lonely. And we have some families right now that are actually in hospital, in rehab, and they can't have any visitors come in to see them. You know, a year ago, McLean was in the hospital. That would have been us. And so, you know, I've arranged a virtual call on Saturday for anyone who just is feeling lonely to come on and talk. So that too has been an offer of help that wasn't necessarily for a product or a service, but just to make sure that we stay connected because people are getting lonely. So yeah, it's been really well received and it feels really good.
Great. I think we can take a few more minutes, maybe a question that Kristy can answer. What are your thoughts about the term new normal? Does that give you anxiety too, that it's going to stay this way?
Funnily enough, it doesn't give me anxiety. What I have, so I read a quote, shocker, a few weeks ago, but it really resonated with me, and it's something that I think about kind of daily. And it is, when we return to normal, what do you want that normal to look like? So, you know, we're going to see, from an industry perspective and an economic perspective, a lot of shifts in how certain industries run their businesses. I just think we're going to come out of this a changed society. We're going to see some changes in healthcare, you know, things like virtual care that as a patient, we've been begging for a long time. It's really hard to put those types of things back in the bottle once you've announced them and they're working and people are seeing benefit from them. So again, this goes back to me being probably more of an optimist. I feel excited about what life is going to be like after this, but I also think it's important as an individual to be intentional about how you want to move forward after this. Will I return to the crazy running everywhere, you know, no family dinner time to sit down, mom? The idea, like, you know, let's reflect back on this in 6 months. I can sit here now and say, no way, we love our family time, which, you know, that's true 50% of the time. I love all the family time. The other 50% of the time, I'm like, we need to get back to normal life. But no, it doesn't give me anxiety.
Well, we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties with Kristy, so hopefully she'll be back in a minute. In the meantime, we can let you know we are going to be doing a number of these webinars in future, talking about the issues and themes that are important to patients and caregivers. We'd love your feedback on topics that you would like to hear about or have ideas about. Please, if you're not already, consider following us on social media. We're active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a LinkedIn page as well. You can also email us directly at hello@chronicallysimple.com. We'd love to hear from you. And we will be sharing this webinar, the recording of it, for anyone who missed it or who would like to watch it again. So on that note, we'd just like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found it useful. And again, if you haven't already, please check out chronicallysimple.com and start your free 6-month trial. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Hey. And a big thanks to Brenda and Kristy.
No problem. Thanks for having us.